There are 3 crucial steps that you need to take when you're making your 808 patterns to make sure that you're optimizing them and that they can sound as best as they possibly can. So here they are. Each one of these steps is just as critical as the last, so make sure that you're optimizing and doing these to the best of your ability so that you can always get the best results. So the first method is making sure that you're finding the right bass notes to be using in the first place. And there's a couple different ways that you can do this. The first way is the 2 octaves up method. So what you're going to do is you're going to solo your melody and then solo your 808 notes. And what you're going to do is put your 808 notes 2 octaves up higher than you would normally. And what you're going to do is try to guess the notes doing it that way. So when you put the 808 notes up higher like that, you can hear more of the tone in the 808 versus the bass response. And that's going to allow you to pick out the correct notes way easier. And you're going to know right away if the 808 is out of bounds or not. Okay, so the second way is to use Ableton's built-in converter, which is super handy. And you may see me use this all the freaking time. And what you're going to do is you're going to drag and drop the audio file from your melody into that MIDI track. And then it's going to ask you if you want to harmonize it, make a melody, or do drums. So just click on the harmony and it's going to start guessing which notes are actually being played. And then when you open up that MIDI note, you're going to see there's a bunch of notes that Ableton inputted in there that it's guessing the melody is playing. So what you're going to do is take the bottom most notes that you're singing there, and you can pretty much get rid of everything else and just follow the bottom notes. And that's going to give you what the bass line or the bass chords of your melody are. Now you might have to play around with this a little bit because it's not 100% accurate, but I would say it's about 93% accurate. Okay, so before we move on to the second way to optimize your 808s, I want to throw in another free little tip right here. This is rule 1.5, and that is figuring out your pattern velocity. So in this project that I have right here, we have perfect examples of exactly what I mean. The pattern velocity is like, how fast is your 808 pattern going to be? Is there going to be like a lot of space in between each note, or is they going to be playing one after another really quickly? So let me show you 2 examples of that right now. So in this first 808 pattern, you can see right here, I have a first C sharp note being played, quite a bit of a gap right here before the next note comes in. And you can contrast that to the second part right here, where you can see right off the bat, we're playing 3 notes. So it's playing a little bit faster. The velocity is faster. So a little bit of a slower pace, but leaves lots of room for those next 808 notes to come in and really smash through the mix. Let's take a look at the faster one really quick. So a little bit faster pace there, and each one is going to work on different beats better than the other. As you can see in this beat, I even combine them. It starts off slower and then it goes into a faster version. So that's something that you can do in your beats as well. All right, so the second important way to optimize your 808 patterns is to choose what notes you're actually going to be playing in them. So there's kind of 2 approaches to this. The first one is following the bass line notes almost perfectly to the core, and the second one is really just using the root note and kind of varying from there, seeing what notes will work as that progresses. Okay, so we took a look at this 808 already, but as you can see, we have a bass line, and what I did is these notes that are deactivated right here are what the actual bass line was. By the way, if you want to deactivate a note, you just want to highlight it and press a 0 on your keyboard. So as you can see, I'm following the bass notes here. So I'm playing with them, and as soon as it goes down to an A, I'm switching to an A. As soon as it goes to an F, I'm switching there, and I'm following them very thoroughly. So this is one way to do it, to make sure that your 808s stay in the right spots and they don't sound awkward or out of place. Okay, so in this second example, I didn't really have like chord notes to use for the melody, right? Some melodies don't have chords in them, so it's not going to change up what the bass notes are over time. You might just want to stick to one root note that the melody's playing on. And the root note for this one happens to be E, if you couldn't guess it already. So what we could do is we could make the whole pattern in E and call it a day, or we could go ahead and try to experiment and see what notes will still sound good and not throw it off or make it sound awkward. Another thing I want to throw in there too is using different octaves. You can use E3, E4, E5. It might start to sound weird once you get higher, but you can use any of the E's and they're all going to sound correctly. But it's when you start to use other notes that you have to be careful of. So things that I started to realize is when you're at the end of like a 4-bar segment, 4 or 8-bar segment, you can go ahead and switch up the different notes without it feeling awkward. But if I was to go ahead and put a B right here at the beginning, it's not going to sound right. It's going to sound off. All right, so that sounds dope, but if we were to say use a B right here, because as you can hear, the B sounds like it fits in there perfectly, but if we were to go ahead and take the first note and make it B, it's gonna sound way off. Horrible. Sounds horrible. So you have to be selective with which notes you use. But we could even go ahead and play with this a little bit more. Maybe we wanted to make this last note even farther down. We can totally do that as long as the note's in scale. But you have to actually listen to it and make sure it sounds good in your head too. Alright guys, so the third way to optimize your 808 patterns to be absolutely perfect is to choose the right 808 sample to use for the pattern that you're going to be using. Things that go into play is the sample that you're using and the length of it as well. So if we're looking at this pattern right here, you can see things are getting played pretty quickly, right? So a Spins 808 is going to work a lot better than a Zay 808, right? The Zay 808's a lot longer and a lot like more of a punch to the chest versus an 808 is a lot skinnier, maybe even less length, so it can be played faster and still sound good. But if we were to throw a Zay in here and these notes play really quickly one after another, it's probably not going to sound too great. Alright guys, so we talked about how to optimize your 808 patterns to sound as best as they possibly can, but we never talked about how you can mix them down, distort them, and make them sound fat and punchy all at the same time. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, check out this video that I'm going to leave right here. We just made this video a couple weeks ago and it's got everything you need to see. And besides that one guys, we'll be catching you again in the next one. Peace out.